अभी तो हमारा फसल बिक गया, माल बिक गया, बस अपने सिर निकाल के आए हैं। खुदा की कसम है तो हमने कोई घर से सामान नहीं दिया, क्यों जो हम बस ऐसे ही बच्चों को निकाल के निकल आए।
Ko atuate ko joko mentala matanya singuro kono persalaya wa persala letan lanting letan jago betul macam seperti ana
से अब आए सैलाब पे डूब के बाहर निकले, सामान तो निकाल नहीं पाए, मकान वहाँ गिर गए। जब वहाँ यहाँ पहुँचे ऐसी बुरी हालत में बचे थे, क्या बताएं, बिल्कुल हाल ख़त्म थे।
मजबूरी है, एक नहीं मैंने छोटी बच्चा मिट्टी खादा न खाने लाई।
मुरामन खावा माँ के खबर आवा मुझे दर्द माँ के कला को थोड़ा को माँ बीमार थी, मैं यहाँ बुखार थी, कादो न थो बने माँ मजबूर थी, माँ काढ़े बना बच्चा ने डिसा ने रण ने डिसा पांच घर ने डिसा ना मुर्स ना कोई बो पुट्री हिकड़ो सो भी बीमार रहंदो आई और सदाई मां पाण अड़ी बीमार थी वया इन जुगन कयो मां के लाचार यो अफसोस आ मां के ये मुके कोई कोने को अल्लाह राजी भी कोई तरस न तो मुंजो करे।
Pakistan is facing one of the worst floods in its recent history. More than 1 million homes have been destroyed. Multi-story hotels have crumbled. Bridges have been wrecked. At least 5,000 kilometers of roads have been damaged. More than 700,000 livestock have been lost. 2 million acres of crops and orchards have been damaged. On August 30th, the Pakistani government declared a national emergency. 72 out of 160 districts have been marked as disaster zones. Since mid-June, Pakistan has been drenched by extreme monsoon rains that have led to the country's worst flooding in a decade. The flooding is the result of a combination of record monsoon rains and melting glaciers in Pakistan's northern mountains. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, summed up the situation.
Pakistan is awash in suffering. The Pakistani people are facing a monsoon on steroids, the relentless impact of epochal levels of rain and flooding.
The deadly flooding from an unprecedented monsoon season has destroyed lives, livelihoods, and infrastructure. More than 6.4 million people in Pakistan are in dire need of humanitarian aid. The government is struggling to cope with the unprecedented situation.
I appealed yesterday and I appeal today to all affluent people whom God has blessed with wealth
industrialists, businessmen and all other rich people from Punjab, Sindh, Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to come forward and hold the hand of the suffering humanity in this difficult time.
आगे बढ़ें, ऐसे वक्त दुखी इंसानियत का हाथ थाम लें.
The United Nations is issuing a flash appeal for $160 million to support the response led by the government of Pakistan. These funds will provide 5.2 million people with food, water, sanitation, emergency education, protection and health support.
The government, led by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, is planning to reach out to global lenders for monetary assistance. The cash-strapped country is mulling another emergency loan days after it managed to secure the much-needed bailout package from the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, to avert an imminent default. The estimated economic loss to Pakistan from flood has increased from $10 billion to $12.5 billion. The floods have washed away standing and stored crops, which has led to an acute food shortage. Who is to blame? Climate change, of course.
So really, it's time for the big emitters to review their policies. We have crossed what is clearly, we've crossed a threshold, not just Pakistan, but many countries. The global climate has crossed a threshold earlier than expected. And we are the ground zero as the tipping point happens.
Pakistan produces less than 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions, but its geography makes it extremely vulnerable to climate change. But is climate change the sole reason for the deluge? Take a look at this example. This is a 90-year-old barrage in the Sindh province. The colonial-era Sukur barrage directs the flow of the water from the mighty Indus River. It was considered an engineering marvel when it was completed in 1932. It directs water to a series of canals, totaling nearly 10,000 kilometers that thread through farmlands. But years of neglect mean they are not capable of dealing with what the country is facing today.
The barrage was built almost 90 years ago. The guarantee was 50 years. We have already surpassed the guarantee period by 40 years. Naturally, it has weakened.
Despite a history of intense floods, the country was ill-prepared for this year's monsoon season. Political and economic instability have compounded the suffering. The scale of the recent flooding in Pakistan is staggering. It's also taking a toll on the country's economy. Even before the floods, the South Asian nation was struggling with dwindling currency reserves and the fastest inflation in almost 5 decades. In July 2022, the annual inflation rate increased to 24.9%. And it can go up to 30% in this fiscal year. The country is witnessing skyrocketing prices of common food items. Onion and tomatoes, ingredients in most Pakistani meals, have been affected the most. The cost of potatoes has climbed 4 times to 100 rupees a kilo. Onions that cost about 50 rupees a kilo before the floods are now being sold at 300 rupees. Tomatoes were up by 300% to 400 rupees a kilo, while the cost of ghee or clarified butter has surged 400%. The situation looks bleak. Floodwaters are spreading across Pakistan. Numerous rescue missions are currently underway to save those stuck in the deluge. This video was taken on August 28. A boy stranded in the middle of a heavily flooded stream in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province was rescued by a helicopter. The mission was carried out by the Pakistani army. Helicopters also rescued 75 residents of a submerged village in the southern province of Sindh.
We were stuck in the flood waters for 15 days. Finally, we saw a helicopter and waved frantically. We were rescued by the army.
Pakistan's armed forces had rescued over 2,000 stranded people till September 2nd. They are also delivering food and aid to the parts of the valley cut off by unrelenting floods, but many are getting left behind.
I'm a widow and I have received no aid. I have not received a tent, food or money. What am I to do?
We are sitting here helpless. We are waiting for help. If it comes, then good. If not, God helps us.
Some of those who are receiving aid are living in makeshift tents. UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, has provided 10,000 tents and thousands of other relief items. These include sanitary products, cooking stoves, blankets, solar lamps, and sleeping mats. Like in other natural calamities, children and women bear the brunt. So far, Pakistan floods have claimed the lives of nearly 500 children. They are the most vulnerable group. Waterborne diseases pose a deadly risk for them.
Diarrhea, cholera, all the diseases you can imagine will hit and quite soon. So we need to be in place to respond to those as well.
To maintain some semblance of normalcy, a makeshift school tent has been opened in the Sindh province of Pakistan. It is also providing meals to the displaced children. Meet Shamshad Gul. She is among the 650,000 pregnant women trying to survive the devastation. Gul is 42 years old and is already a mother of 5. At 8 months pregnant, she is currently taking shelter in a relief camp on the outskirts of Fazalpur, one of the worst flood-hit areas in Punjab province. Gul left her flooded mud house with her children, along with other villagers, when floodwaters entered their homes.
I am 8 months pregnant. I can feel labor pain. I'm facing problems here in the camp. We need a doctor or at least a female nurse who can help us. There are more pregnant women like me in this camp. I don't know where to go.
The survival of the mother and newborn will be at risk without access to birth attendants and proper facilities. This is Fahmida Bibi, another pregnant woman in the camp at Fazalpur. She is about to deliver any time now.
I'm 9 months pregnant. I also have other small children. I was prescribed medicines, but I cannot afford them. Besides, I'm feeling very weak and cannot go anywhere to get these medicines. They're only giving medicines for cold and flu at the camp. There is no one, not even a female doctor, to help us.
Bibi keeps an eye out for a doctor who is rumored to be due for a visit at the campsite she now calls home. The uncontrolled floodwaters have spelled doom for animals too. Nearly 1 million farm animals have perished since the floods started in June. Cows and other livestock were dragged away in the water. Thankfully, rescuers managed to save many animals. In this video, a man could be seen saving a cat from a flooded river in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Here is another heartwarming story from the same region. Floodwaters hit a dog shelter in the town of Charsadda, but the heroic shelter staff acted quickly. They were able to bring all of their canine friends to safety.
There were 250 dogs. We rescued 200 dogs, but then we rescued the remaining 50 dogs with boats the next day. We have 35 other dogs in cages. The government did not provide any help, but we managed to do it all by ourselves. We request the government to also provide help and relief for us.
In another incident, a veterinarian school in southern Pakistan offered free treatment for animals injured in the catastrophic floods.
Most of the animals coming here suffer from pneumonia, skin diseases and foot problems that have occurred due to walking in floodwater.
Out of all flood-affected provinces in the south, Sindh, with a population of 50 million, was the hardest hit. The region received 466% more rain than the 30-year average. In Sindh's Tando Alatar city, many devotees crossed murky floodwaters to attend Friday prayers at a local mosque. They prayed for relief from the recent wave of disasters that have affected millions across the country. Unfortunately, Pakistan's Meteorological Office has predicted more rains and flash flooding in the month of September. It is also a critical concern for the largest natural freshwater lake in Pakistan, the Manchar. Located in the Sindh province, the Manchar Lake is Pakistan's biggest freshwater lake. The lake straddles two districts, Dadu and Jamshoro. It's dangerously close to bursting its banks. Officials intentionally breached the lake after it had flooded two rural towns. The decision to deliberately flood some villages to save other areas is a controversial one. It has affected an estimated 400 villages. Nearly 100,000 people were displaced from their homes. Located in southern Sindh province near the Indus River, the 5,000-year-old ruins of Mohenjo-daro are also bearing the brunt of the heavy rains. Though the flooding has not directly hit the World Heritage Site, but the record-breaking rains have inflicted damage on the ruins of the ancient city.
The original drainage system, which is 5,000 years old, is still functional. The rainwater flowed through the drainage system. It worked during the rains. With the grace of Allah, that old system worked.
While drainage systems that are thousands of years old appear to stand the test of time, modern flood preparedness is clearly no match for nature's fury. The United Nations has warned that the humanitarian situation in the flood-ravaged country may get worse. Time is running out for Pakistan.